Is rolling out plans to use space technology to enhance national security, communication, industrialization, and sustained socio-economic development. But how prepared is the country for the space technology? I spoke to the Director General of the National Space Research Development Agency on Nigeria's presence in space. Hello there, thank you for joining me on the program. I'm Gloria Umezuke. Now, in its quest for further technological relevance and empowerment, the federal government launched 2 satellites. Now, in this week's edition of the program, my guest, the Director General of the National Space Research Development Agency, speaks about the nation's space technology efforts. But first, a university don has spoken about how the nation can benefit from space technology to become among the top 20 economies in the world. Listen.
The first communication satellite, SAICOM-2, was used to record the historic telephone conversation between the former American President John Kennedy and Nigeria's Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. At a lecture to commemorate the event, a university don, Professor Tunji Ibiyemi, says Nigeria needs to do more in consolidating on the gains of communication technology.
It is not the amount of natural resources that you have now that determine how wealthy you are. If that is the case, Nigeria has no problem. But if you have natural resources and you cannot transform it to products by yourself, it is with your own head you carry that natural resources to somebody who will tell you how much is going to buy it. You buy it at his own price, and then he will transform it and sell it to you at his own price. That is what we are experiencing.
The Director General of the National Space Research and Development Agency, Professor Seidu Mohammed, says Nigeria's prospect in achieving technological development is very bright, particularly with the increased number of global population.
There are approximately 1,107 satellites providing civilian communications, and another 792 supporting military communications in the orbit. Some 700 of them are in synchronous orbit. The communication satellite industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry that gives human returns on investments. Revenue for services on communication satellite in 2011 alone is over $90 billion, comprising of satellite radio and broadband.
The launch of SAICOM-2 in July 1963 symbolized the beginning of technological revolutions across the globe through the application of space science and technology.
Well, joining me now on the program to talk about how valuable Nigeria's satellite project is, and of course, did the nation do well by investing in this area? That's another vital question. Professor Seidu Mohammed, the Director General of the National Space Research Development Agency, now tells us more. Professor Seidu Mohammed, you're welcome to the program.
Oh yeah, thank you very much.
Well, let's begin with Nigeria's venture into space. What informed this move, and we're wondering, is it successful?
Thank you once again. Following the launch of first American Earth observation satellite, Landsat in 1972, most nations realized the benefit of what satellites could play in national development. And in the light of that, Nigeria made its intention known in 1976 in Addis Ababa of its intention to also venture in space as possibility of, enhancing its development. In the light of that, a lot of, a lot of projects were put in place to ensure that that happens. That currently have one. It shows that we're far behind with large population. We do say that private sector, the cycle of development in an area of technology will not be complete without the private sector taking up the appropriate places and being on the driver's seat. Like I said, there's enormous amount of money globally for them to earn. And we can only do this if they put in more money and commitments. The fact that most of these areas, you must dare to enable you to achieve something. And I challenge the private sector in Nigeria to go into high-tech areas, and that is areas they can make more money. And communication satellites is one of them. And I've always said it, that the space agency currently have more than enough engineers to advise the private sector on these issues, on what to do and how to go about it. And they must also realize, in ITU, where most of these resources are distributed to various countries, that Africa is lumped with Europe. And Africa is largely a dormant zone. And because we are not doing anything, and most of these resources are monopolized by the Europeans, what it means is that we are not doing enough in terms of poverty alleviation. And of course, most of these things come with other issues of technology development and in areas of hardware and software. Unless we're there, we will not make any way forward.
Now we have latest satellites from here, Earth observation satellites, of course, capable of delivering very large amounts of data, and so many others. Now we know that this, of course, also can help to solve problems of flooding, security, and all of that. Do you think we're utilizing this?
Yes, we are. To a large extent, we are covering the whole of the country. And normally, even at peacetime, when there are no problems, we cover the whole country. So that, and because of that, we have, developed an archive. We put that so that people who are interested in agriculture can come and work with us to do soil characterization in terms of fertilizer distribution, fertilizer utilization for farmers and other inputs. We also keep them for people who are interested in water resources development to identify large water bodies and other issues related to that. Others come to develop floodplains to know where rice can be cultivated. Others come here for aspects of mineral mapping, aspects of geology and other related issues. All these are being kept. And Nigerian Sat2 is being used for that. And in addition, we registered Nigeria as a member of the International Charter. What that means is that we make 5% of our capacity available for charity worldwide. What it means is, in the event of any disaster anywhere in the world, and if our satellite is within that corridor at that time, we help take such images from those places and make it available to them. In 2012, when the flooding problem existed here, images were downloaded within 2 days. We processed it and we gave it to NEMA as a focal agency for disaster management in this country. And through that, it helped to rehabilitate a number of people in need. And not only that, also realized because we registered Nigeria 2 years earlier, the Ogunpa flood in Ibadan. Within 2 days, maps were made available to them for rehabilitation through NEMA, and was processed by the Space Agency. And ditto, Sokoto, Goronyo Dam issues. All these things are being done. And we're helping other countries. Remember, like I said, we're part of the part of images over New Orleans in the U.S. We're part of images of disaster of fire in Australia. We're part of the tsunami disaster in the Southeast Asia. All these were part of that campaign and made images available from Nigerian Sat1. And lucky enough, we have Nigerian Sat2 now, which is intervening in various sectors of Nigerian economy. How
many more satellites do you hope to procure in the next 1 year or so?
Yes, we have a 25-year roadmap for the development of space science and technology in Nigeria. So long as Nigeria continues that wants to be competitive in agriculture, in environmental monitoring, in mineral mapping, in communication, then there will continue to be more satellites. As a matter of fact, what we are seeing at the moment, the two we have are still, when you compare the number, are small relatively compared to other nations. By size of our population, we need more. And in addition to that, we have also some other limitations. At the moment, there is cloud cover for most parts of this country. And the satellites we have are optical satellites.
What do you mean cloud cover?
If you're flying from Abuja to Lagos, you see cloud cover. You can't see beyond the cloud. It's the same thing too. most of our satellites are optical satellites. They do not see beyond cloud. And the greater part of Nigeria is covered by this for most times of the year. And it's in the light of that in 2015, by our roadmap, we should introduce into our fleet a synthetic aperture radar satellite. This has several advantages. One, it will see beyond cloud, and therefore will enable us to acquire images in most parts of this country. Two, particularly the economic zone, which is the oil-producing areas, there are no data for those areas. Sometimes throughout the year, you will not have one free cloud day, which means it's impossible to collect data. Three, we are home to the largest number of illegal vessels in the whole of Africa. What that means is that illegal fishing vessels are here every day by our shores. People are stealing oil, which is not so in other places. And the Gulf of Guinea is one of the richest gulfs in the world. A lot of activities are taken up there. Multinationals are there fighting. We must find out why they are fighting. And the only way we can do this is to have ability to gather data from this area. We know for Nigeria to run a knowledge economy, we require information, we require data to process information, which is knowledge, and will give the opportunity to tackle most of these problems.
Do you think enough research has been done in this area, really? Because a lot of experts say that for Nigeria to really get into becoming one of the top 20 economies by the year 2020, we must do adequate research into raw materials, turning raw materials into finished products, and that really is not happening.
Frankly, Nigeria is doing its best. The framework is already there, put in place. Several agencies of government are there with mandates and responsibilities. But the issue is that there's a major issue of funding. Remember, there was the Lagos Plan of Action in 1980 that says 1% of the GDP should be allocated to research. And it was also followed by the recent one, which is in the Nairobi Plan of Action, which says 3%. Some of the countries in Africa are already doing that. As we speak, funding in science and tech is still less than 0.5%. So largely, most of it is affecting activities in most of these areas.
But with the sort of investment you talk about in the space technology and all of that, is it not possible for you to do your own research without relying so much on the federal government?
Yeah, know that there are laws. Anything we sell from any of these Earth observation satellites must be paid into the treasury. We have no access to it. So you can't use that for research. So
can't you campaign on such grounds that given the amount of money that comes in, number of return on investment that comes in, at least the agency should be able to should be entitled to such amount of money?
You see, the issue is that, what led to those plans for the development of research, especially in science and technology, is the fact that reforms are required to enable us to do a number of things. As we speak, our Assembly Integration Testing and Design Center is yet to be built, and that is the heart of space program. It enables our engineers and scientists here to build satellites at home, and because there have not been funds, and that also know that yes, we have a satellite, and yes, we are prepared to sell, but it is not yet a culture to use imageries in this country because we don't have large farms, and because a lot of people are not into it yet. And they mostly use it in Europe, and they have a good number of them. Yes, we have signed an agreement with the DMSIA of the United Kingdom to sell, but we are competing with so many. These are issues and these are limitations, while funding remains a major issue. For us to be in where we deserve to be, research is cardinal, because certain things are peculiar to us and nobody will come here to do it for us.
It also appears as though you don't get international donor agencies to also fund.
All over the world, space programs are regarded as platforms to enable a country become competitive. If you want to compete with your neighbors and your colleagues, certainly they will not help you.
Okay.
So it's in the light of that, I have not received any support from anywhere. Or whatever relationship we have are purely commercial, and such as with the United Kingdom, with China,